Good morning, pre-prep. Welcome to another busy week. It's Monday morning and I've got a nice story for us to start the week off. Now, we'll be doing work with this story today and tomorrow, and I hope it's a story that you're going to enjoy. It's one I used to read to my children when they were little, and it's one that they always really enjoyed, so I hope you like it. It's called Off to the Fair, and it's got these three characters in it, and they're trying to get to the fair, but as you see, it goes a little bit wrong. So let's see what happens, shall we? Why, look at this, said Mr. Bear. There's a fair in town. Oh, we must go, said Mrs. Elephant. It will be fun, said Mrs. Walrus. We'll go straight there, said Mr. Bear. So that's just what they did. Off they went, and by they reached the town and followed the road to the fair. Off they go. But on the way, they passed the shops. What lovely hats, said Mrs. Elephant. Oh, and swimsuits too, said Mrs. Walrus. And in they went to have a look. Oh, do be quick, said Mr. Bear. We'll miss the fun of the fair. All the lovely hats were just a little bit too small for Mrs. Elephant. Must you try on everyone, complained Mr. Bear. And the swimsuits were a bit too tight for a walrus. Can you see? Oh, do come on, said Mr. Bear. We'll be late for the fair, and I'm told they've got a hall of mirrors there. So off they went. But on the way, they passed a cafe. Shopping's such hard work. We must have an ice cream, declared Mrs. Elephant. Oh, me too, agreed Mrs. Walrus. Just a quick one, perhaps, said Mr. Bear. But the ice creams were so tiny. They had 24 each, and made rather a mess. The waiter got very cross. Mr. Bear got impatient. Oh, do let's get on to the fair. I'm sure they have candy floss there. So off they went. But on the way, they passed the cinema. Oh, look, cried Mrs. Elephant. There's a film about a small elephant with very large ears. Can you work out which film that might be? But what about the fair, said Mr. Bear. Oh, we have all day to get there, said Mrs. Walrus. So in they went. But all they saw at the cinema was the shadow of a large elephant with very small ears. Can you see? Well, that was very boring, grumbled Mr. Bear when they came out. Now, please, can we go to the fair? They may have a ghost train there. So off they went. But on the way, they passed the swimming pool. Who's for a swim? Asked Mrs. Elephant. Just the thing after that stuffy old cinema. And that sticky ice cream, agreed Mrs. Walrus. And even Mr. Bear thought it might be fun. So, 1, 2, 3. They all jumped in. Splash. It looked like they're happy there, they're enjoying that. But when they jumped in, most of the water jumped out. And if you look, it says, no jumping. Well, that was a washout. There wasn't much left for a swim, grumbled Mr. Bear. Now do let's hurry to the fair. I bet they have a helter-skelter there. So off they went. But on the way, they passed a concert hall. Oh, I love a good concert, declared Mrs. Elephant. Especially after a swim, added Mrs. Walrus. The concert was lovely, right up until Mrs. Elephant began tapping her foot to the rhythm. Everything shook as if there was an earthquake. The animals had to leave. Well, perhaps now we can go to the fair, said the exasperated Mr. Bear. I've heard they have an organ there. So off they went. But when they got there, the gates were locked. Everyone had gone home to bed. Oh dear, said Mrs. Elephant. What a shame, said Mrs. Walrus. I told you to hurry, said Mr. Bear angrily. Not to worry, Mr. Bear, said Mrs. Elephant. We'll wait until it opens in the morning. So that's just what they did. They slept right there, and when the gates opened the next morning, they were first in the queue and went straight in. And there was a hall of mirrors, and candy floss, and a ghost train. They all rode on the lovely merry-go-round, but Mr. Bear had 4 extra turns. This is the life, he said dreamily. I might come again tomorrow. Can you see how much fun they're having? Right then, now, I hope you like that story. I really like that one. I don't read it very often, but it is a lovely story. Now, what I'd like you to do this morning is, in the story, there's a couple of times where things go a little bit wrong. So there's the swimming pool, when they all jump in. You see, there's them all jumping in. And then, if you remember, all the water jumps out. And they've left the people and the manager in charge of the swimming pool rather cross and grumpy. And there's another occasion in the story where it goes a little bit wrong, and that's when they're having their ice creams. So there they are sitting down having their ice creams. And because they made such a mess, the poor waiter has told them, here it is, look. They have to go. Now I'd like you to choose either the waiter of the cafe or the owner of the swimming pool, and I'd like you to write an apology letter. So I'd like you to say sorry. So pretend you are either Mr. Bear or Mrs. Walrus or Mrs. Elephant, and say that you're sorry for splashing all the water out, or sorry for jumping in, or sorry for spoiling the swimming pool. I don't mind, you can choose. So I want you to think about saying sorry, pretending you're one of the animals, and we're going to say sorry. So remembering with your letters that you need to write dear or to at the start, and then at the end you can say from Mrs. Walrus or love from Mrs. Walrus. I don't mind, you can choose. Okay, so I don't mind who you write it to. We're going to try and think about what we're saying sorry for, and then finish it off. Now, challenge yourself to see if you can write in sentences and remember those full stops. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.